June 24th, 2019. We're probably a couple minutes after 7 starting. This is our last meeting before Canada Day, so we're starting the celebration early. We did not have a closed session earlier, so we're opening in the open session now. Calling for additional business. Staff, any additional business? Seeing none. Council? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Through your worship, I have one regarding the AMO delegation requests.
Oh, yeah. Others, council? Councillor Thomas?
I just have a couple of items on events I've attended on your behalf, your worship.
Thank you. Who's next along there? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to give an update on Canada Day.
Perfect. Going that way. Kepke, Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. One item on Harbour Nights and the other Adult Learning, Active Lifestyle Center.
Perfect. Anyone else? Seeing no others, I'll have a couple of updates of things I've done in the last couple of weeks. Disclosure, pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Anyone? Seeing none. Confirmation of council minutes. Councillor Hamley.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that the minutes of the special council meeting held on June 6th, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That's carried. 6B.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Grieg, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 10th, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Next is number 7 on the agenda.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gregg, that City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
And all in favor? And that is carried. So we're now in Committee of the Whole. At number 8 in the agenda, we have no public meetings. At number 9, we have a deputation that I'm going to go down to the other microphone to present. This is a special evening for us. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, do you want to join me and provide some help? Thank you. We want to go ahead. We want to welcome the guests, family, and friends of Ken and Judy Thompson. As you know, our city annually honors volunteers, youth volunteers, and seniors. But sometimes there's very special people who have made a special contribution to our community that need to be recognized and thanked on behalf of the community. And Ken Thompson is one of those special people. I want to pause here just before I go too much further. With Mr. Thompson is his wife, Judy, who is also pretty special in our community. Judy has been a volunteer at the Tom Thompson Art Gallery for approximately 50 years. She was chair during the expansion of the gallery in 1988. She was on the Women's Gallery Committee way back when, which was so responsible for collecting money, fundraising, buying and donating art to the gallery, and the women's group were really the backbone to the gallery that established so much, and she was such an important part of that. So I want to pause and recognize Mrs. Thompson too. So tonight we're very pleased to recognize and thank Mr. Thompson on his contribution to the Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board and the Owen Sound Housing Company. He recently retired as chair of the board of directors. He has dedicated the past 32 years of his life creating an inclusionary housing community. Mr. Thompson was the founding chair of the Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation in 1986. And his leadership has led to the Owen Sound Housing through 6 builds, totaling 236 units. He led the board as they acquired land through the federal surplus land reserves, opening up parts of the East Hill, a previously non-service section of Owen Sound. This has provided significant growth opportunity to our city in that part of the city. Prior to that, Mr. Thompson taught English for a few years at West Hill Secondary School until his retirement, and also served as chairman of the Grey Owen Sound Children's Aid Society Board. As a teacher, Mr. Thompson was known as a very creative and engaging teacher. He had vision and foresight that could see the long-term goals that other teachers maybe focused just on their own, what's in front of them that day. He was forever encouraging and supportive. Sometimes he lectured from the top of his desk. Sometimes he sat in that seat dead center at the back. Now, if you're in his class, think about having the teacher sitting at the back and you're afraid to turn around and what that effect was. Mr. Thompson knew that the best person to read the drunken porter scene from Macbeth was, in fact, the student who had enjoyed lunch at the Gold Rush Saloon. Just to be clear, it wasn't me. He was so different from many of his other peers. Many of the other teachers maybe would have sent that student down to the office. Mr. Thompson knew that they're going to learn more in his class than they would sitting in the principal's office. And because of that, no matter what we had done or what kind of condition we were in before we got to class, we made sure we were there. We didn't miss it. It was respect. At that time, the drinking age was 18, so we could go for lunch at the Gold Rush Saloon if we chose to. He can be credited with saving at least one misguided student or a student without confidence and giving them the right encouragement at the right time. That vote of confidence was relied on many times by the student through challenging times as he grew up, eventually entered university as a mature student, got a Bachelor of Arts, and then a law degree. For that, I personally thank him. Mr. Thompson also served in City Council in the 70s for one term. It was a 2 or 3 year term. And those people that are watching on Rogers Cable at this moment can thank him. We were just talking about that. He was the instigator? The one who encouraged the Rogers Cable to come in and start to broadcast our meetings way back then, and had, again, foresight that we all appreciate now. Mr. Thompson said his experiences teaching, serving on the Children's Aid Society Board and on the Nonprofit Housing Board provided him with insight into the importance of having safe, permanent, and affordable housing in communities. Having spent much of his earlier life in foster homes before being adopted out at the age of 18, Ken truly understands the importance of home. Sherry Huber, who is also here, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Housing Organizations, said, and I quote, "Ken's vision and guidance are greatly missed. His philosophy of, we will only build what ourselves will live in, has become the model of our corporation," at the end of the end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Council, on behalf of our whole community, please join me in congratulating Ken Thompson. We've prepared a plaque that says, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Owen Sound, City Council wishes to recognize Kenneth Thompson for 32 years as a city volunteer. Your many contributions have helped make Owen Sound a city where people want to live. Back to you. We also have a certificate of recognition by the Mayor and members of Council on behalf of the residents of the City of Owen Sound in recognition of your dedication and contribution to affordable housing in our community. Thank you and best wishes. The paperwork's just piling up there.
Thank you.
Next in order, but not perhaps in importance, congratulations to Ken Thompson celebrating your years of service to Owen Sound 2019. Please accept my best wishes for your 32 years of volunteering for the City of Owen Sound. Larry Miller, MP, Bruce Gray, Owen Sound. And from our member of Provincial Parliament, letter from Bill Walker. I would like to take this opportunity to offer my personal congratulations to you for being recognized for your volunteer work with the City of Owen Sound for over 32 years. Please accept this greetings on behalf of myself and the Province of Ontario. Best wishes. Thank you for all that you have contributed to make our community the best it can be. I'm going to hand the microphone to you, Mr. Thompson, because I think you'll want to something to say. So
A teacher tends to be verbose, but gee, I am humbled with all of these accolades. Really, it's marvelous. I've been in front of council a number of times trying to promote endless things that I really feel were necessary to make Owen Sound the best place that you could live. We came here in 1970, and we found the exact place for our talents, our interests, and we intended to follow forward and go ahead by making some contribution, however small, to our new place. 1970 is a long time back. It's almost pre-Ice Age. Anyhow, I have been pleased to work with the people who run this city at the business level, at the level, the engineering level. And I've been very pleased to call up the mayor, or Wayne Ritchie, in middle of a crisis, and ask for bridge financing, or we will be sued. And I felt I was being personally sued at that point. Anyhow, it worked, and many other crises were resolved by the city, and as a result, we always felt that they had our back, and that the Owen Sound will fulfill that motto, place where you want to live. I hope you do. Bob Walker always said, and I quote him here, "We will not build anything that we will not live in ourselves." And I think we agree with that. So I'll end my little speech with that. Thank you. I used to be a student, now I have to say your worship.
Oh, I'm sure you've called me worse. So, in conclusion, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson can certainly see through the positive impact you've had in our community and those that surround you. Thank you for everything you've done to support and promote affordable housing and the arts in the City of Owen Sound. Thank you. Just give them a minute. So we can move on with 9B. Mr. Kafalis, do you have any update with regard to the Downtown River Precinct project?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Your Worship, as you can see, we've actually started with some of the surface treatments late last week. We finished essentially all of the underground work has been done. We started with the curb and gutter on Friday, finished up today. There's a little bit left to be done. Right now, once you see, it's kind of like building a house. You know, you bring the foundation, you work a lot on the foundation, you don't really think anything's happening. But now once you start on the surface treatment, you can see a lot of action taking place. So once they finish with the curb and gutter, you'll start seeing them starting to fill in the roadways to bring them up to grade and prep them for the final surface treatment, whether it's asphalt and or the paving stones, depending on the location. As well, they've excavated the foundation out for the pavilion, and that slab should be put in sometime later this week, the foundation and the slab itself, and allow some time for curing, and then they'll start on the structure. So right now, they're on schedule, and given some of the rain days that we've had, they've really been productive in the days they've had, and we're on schedule, and it should be completed as anticipated.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Thanks, Dennis. We know that the new road is one way going south. What happens when you get to 8th Street? You're either turning left or right. Will it turn into 2 lanes?
Thank you for the question. Through your worship, yes, it'll flare out at the end, at the intersection of 8th, and allow for either right-hand turn or left-hand turn. Originally, we anticipated putting a little island in the center, but we found that that'll just become a hindrance when we do snow removal, so we've taken that out, and the lanes will be designated through line painting.
Great, thank you.
Any others? Seeing none, thank you very much. Number 10 on our agenda is public question period. If there's anyone who wants to ask a question, see Peter Reid. Oh. Welcome.
Hi. Hello, Peter Reid from Owen Sound. I just wanted to thank the city for placing a garbage can back on the East Hill on 10th Street there. They had changed the buses, or the benches a while ago, and when they did that, I believe they've removed the garbage cans, and they've since put one back, I believe in the last week, and it's really cut down on the garbage sitting around that bench up there. So thank you.
Where in particular, just...
On the 10th Street East Hill, about halfway up the hill, there's a bench.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay.
Good, thank you very much. And someone else, I think, was jumping from the microphone. Welcome. Okay, to push the sort of the mauve-colored button there, and get you to state who you are, and
Yes, Your Worship. My name is Zoe Thurling. My address is 1115 4th Avenue East. I have a question for the honorable councillors. If you would please answer individually. My question is, are we in a climate crisis?
go ahead, if you wish.
I can answer that. Personally, I might even go further, and I say we have a consumption crisis. I think climate is still actually too small in terms of speaking to the enormity of the challenges which face humanity, not just us in Owen Sound, not in Ontario or Canada, across the planet. We are consuming non-replaceable resources at a rate that we can't sustain. So that's how I would term it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Personally, I would ask what the definition of that was going to be, but in the general mindset, I think where you're coming from, my family, we do try to reduce our plastic usage, and we do try to be mindful of our impact on our footprint. Climate crisis, or whatever that definition may be a little bit broader than what my thinking would be, but I would say that we definitely need to be mindful of our footprint and the world we're living for the next generation.
And I would adopt what Councillor Dodd just said, in that I don't have a firm understanding. Sometimes we lawyers look at words that are used or overused or overexpanded, and crisis is a word that I don't know that it's a crisis, but it's certainly something that we all need to be aware of, and we need to take steps. So I recognize that it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. The crisis word, I don't know about.
Thank you.
I too am not educated enough, but I wouldn't go as far as say we're at a crisis, but we're heading that way.
Thank you.
I would adopt Councillor O'Leary's comments just now. My concern is this: if you call something a crisis, to me it demands immediate, radical, expensive action on the part of the municipality. I don't sense this municipality wants to go there, its governance. And so I'm afraid if you call it a crisis, you invite a level of hypocrisy that would be unfortunate. I hope that's responsive.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Again, too, I don't know that we're at a crisis, but when you do call it a crisis, it brings the attention to people, and people start to conscientiously look at what they're doing with all the recycles and single-use plastics, etc. And we as a council are becoming more conscientious of the use of those things and are working towards doing something about that.
Thank you.
I would just say that climate change is real and we need to work to find solutions to solve it.
Thank you.
And with that, I do note that the Operations Committee has asked our staff to come back with a report on plastics that they are working on. Certainly we're seeing the federal government taking steps, and we'll see what those are. Whether that changes what we do or not, we'll figure it out to see what they do, but we're proceeding anyway with researching to see what we want to do locally. So thank you for your question.
Thank you all for answering. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for your service. Thank you.
Number 11, we have no correspondence presented for consideration. At 12A, Ms. Can, I think, is here to present a report on official plan amendment 6, zoning bylaw number 18. Go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council and staff and members of the public. So we have, excuse me, sorry.
There we go.
We have put before you a recommendation report for the Red Hawk subdivision, being a draft plan of subdivision, an official plan amendment application, and a zoning bylaw amendment application. So you have a trifecta in front of you here today. So we thought there was merit in putting together a brief presentation to answer any lingering questions you may have about the proposed draft plan of subdivision and the associated policy framework changes that are presented. I assure you, you will not be required to do any more reading tonight. This is going to be an image-based presentation. So I do thank you for all the time you put into reading that sizable report. This is an important development and the first of its kind, really, in the Sydenham Heights planning area. So here we go. So in terms of a bit of context, we have the subject lands outlined here in red. The lands are sized 25 hectares or 62 acres and are proposed to contain the 366-unit residential subdivision. Surrounding land uses include institutional to the north and west, including the hospital, East Ridge School, and Georgian College. Vacant rural and natural heritage lands really on all sides of the development. Open space to the east being the rail trail, and residential uses to the north and west, and finally our large format retail areas to the north. This is the lot and block plan subject to draft plan of subdivision approval that is before you this evening. A detail of the blocks 41 and 42 are subject to site plan control, so if you have questions about the fine detail of those blocks, you will be seeing those for future consideration through the site plan control application process. Lots 31 to 36, adjacent to that block 48 along the natural heritage lands, are proposed to contain single detached dwellings, and then blocks 43, 44, 48, and 53 all contain the stormwater management, natural heritage, and vacant lands to be retained by the developer. Here we have a bit of a phasing plan, phase 1 being laid out in yellow, 2 in green, 3 in pink and 4 in turquoise. So that just gives you a sense of how the plan of subdivision is anticipated to proceed once it achieves final approval. In terms of the current official plan designations, the subject lands are designated currently in the low and medium density residential categories. Again, in that Sydenham Heights Phase 1 planning area. Here we have an image of the proposed official plan designations, really bumping each category up from low to medium and from medium to high density residential land use category. So along that 8th Street East corridor, the proposal accommodates non-ground oriented buildings, so multi-unit residential or institutional type uses. And then the remainder of the lands in the lighter orange to be proposed to accommodate that medium density residential development, which is in the form of cluster and street fronting townhouses. So this portion of the official plan amendment is more about allowing for the types of dwelling units as opposed to increasing the density numbers. So it's a little bit of a technicality, but nonetheless, we're seeking some changes there, or rather the applicant is seeking changes to the official plan to facilitate the proposed development. In terms of current zoning, the lands are presently zoned rural and hazard. And then in terms of proposed zoning, we have a much more sort of diverse or mixed use set of land uses proposed there. You can see that the block-specific zoning facilitates a more compact form of development and implements those increased densities that are being requested in that official plan amendment as described. In the light green, the rural lands, it's worth noting that those lands will have a zoning holding provision placed on them, which means that subsequent approvals will be required before any subsequent approvals or certainly development of the lands is permitted. So, for example, the need to establish a road frontage and further environmental impact assessment, those types of things. Here we have a bit of a pictogram of the roads. So the big question is always, what's the broader picture? What is this? How is this development going to connect with the existing road fabric in the city? So our objective here is to show how streets A and B within the Red Hawk subdivision are proposed to connect to the existing road network within the city. So you can see 20th Avenue East up beside the Walmart Home Depot lands, and we'll see that corridor running down through the Braemont lands just east of the hospital, through the Red Hawk subdivision, and then west to connect to 6th Street East ultimately. So both of these will be collector roads, and the red cloud here adjacent to the hospital indicates the location of the future fully controlled intersection, which is part of that county road. So I say fully controlled as opposed to fully signalized because it's yet to be seen whether or not it will be a set of lights or perhaps a roundabout. So that is a county road, so we're continuing to work with the county on that through this approvals process and through subsequent approvals processes for this and other lands in the Phase 1 development area. So here we have another sort of image illustrating the servicing impacting the Red Hawk lands. So the city's undertaking to extend the trunk sanitary sewer south along the rail trail and then west along 8th Street East is shown there in green. The completion of this servicing project means that full servicing is available to the development lands. And then water servicing, of course, is shown in blue. So both are required and are available to service the proposed development. And second to last here, there were some environmental review components required as part of the development proposal. So in blue here, we've illustrated existing habitat for grassland bird species, including meadowlark and bobolink. The proponent has requested that those lands essentially be relocated or that a compensation plan be devised. So the Environmental Protection Act does allow for compensation in certain situations. So the criteria outlined in the Act are met in this development proposal, which is excellent. It's, in my experience, it's actually rare to be able to compensate on the same development lands in which the development is proposed. So to me, that's a boon. And so another huge benefit here is that the net compensation is actually a gain. So we're sort of forfeiting the 3.45 hectares, and we're gaining 4.19 hectare to allow for those grassland bird species to survive and thrive. And then finally, in terms of next steps, subject to Council's consideration tonight, we will likely be seeing a bylaw enactment coming likely to the next council meeting. Of course, notices of decision and appeal periods coming out of that in accordance with the Planning Act. From there, we see fulfillment of conditions by the proponent, which typically takes place in a period of three years. They have a window to fulfill all of their conditions. And then after the conditions are fulfilled, you see final subdivision approval, which is essentially another sort of approvals process under the Planning Act. And then after that, we see site plan approvals processes for those blocks requiring site plan approval, and then phase build out of the lands. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Council? Councillor Kepke?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Amy. That was great. I know we've been critical of other municipalities developing on rural properties. However, we have taken the right steps in, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but putting in the sewer and the water services required to develop those rural lands. Am I correct?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, that is correct. So we are dealing with rural lands, yes. However, those lands are primed for development by virtue of being in that Sydenham Heights planning area and having direct access onto the 8th Street East County Road, as well as having the sanitary and water available fronting the lands.
Thank you. My other question is not directly related to this, but it's to the Director of Public Works and Engineering. When you are coming west on 10th Street East, 10th Street East to 18th Street East, there's a stop sign there, just past the hospice. There's a stop sign there. Why is the stop sign there?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, it's right now it's more of a traffic common device, just to get people slowed down and not just arbitrarily drive out onto the road. I questioned it why it was there many times, but it's just to have a bit of control over that area. Is it warranted? Maybe not, but at least it's there and it does get people thinking.
Others? Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Rabbi. My only question is, and this is just for you to educate myself, obviously there's a tremendous amount of investment both by the developer and by staff as we go along with this development. With what we've heard in the changes in Bill 108, are you able to identify or speak to any of these processes that, it was all about supposedly wanting to streamline the process. Is there changes in Bill 108 that kind of mitigate some of what we see the proponent having to go through here, or not?
I wonder if it would be more fair for me to answer that question, because I was here when this process started and here when Amy's finished it, and I certainly would like to thank her for her work on this file. A lot of this file, as you can tell from reading the report, it's complex. Even though this area was identified as an area for growth in the Sydenham Heights secondary plan of your official plan, it required an extension of servicing, which Council believed in and you took that leap of faith. It required the developer to do an archaeological study. Has to happen in 2 phases. They did an EIS. They identified endangered species. That required them to work through a process to be able to make the lands most suitable for development and find contiguous lands for compensation. So yes, the Bill 108 changes say that we'll do a zoning amendment in 90 days, and I forget how many days for a plan of subdivision. Is that realistic in a complex development? You also can't control the time in which there's a back and forth with developers and their consultants. So developers only have so many resources too, and I don't want to speak for Rod Rice or Mr. Howard, who aren't here tonight, but I know Amy's been discussing the draft plan conditions with them, and I think they find everything to be in order. So maybe that's a roundabout way of saying I'm not really sure if there's anything in Bill 108 that'll make this simpler.
Councillor Craig?
It is helpful, because until you actually get to see the material in front of you and you see somebody going through the process, it's hard to just look at the document and, it's 200 or 400 pages or whatever and apply it. So this is when you get a chance to finally apply what they're talking about in terms of changes or streamlining. So thanks.
Councillor Thomas?
Thanks for the presentation. That was great, and thanks to all staff for the work that's gone into this. I know it's been a long haul. I'd like to move the recommendation, Your Worship, and in so doing, I'd like to say that it's great to see something finally happening in this area. I was working in the media 30 years ago when the city annexed that land for future development. So I'm happy to have survived long enough to see something actually going to happen up there. Now I can read the entire recommendation. You know how much I love the sound of my own voice, or we could just take it as read, Your Worship.
Are you giving me that choice? We've got the recommendation in front of us. Everyone has read it, I think, so I'll save your voice for singing in the choir or something later. Has anyone else have any questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted, I don't know if I was the only one to catch it, but you did announce Owen Sound's very first roundabout tonight, too. So congratulations on that.
I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. First report this time.
You did a good job.
Report a few years ago, I think, but welcome back. 12B, Junior Planners Site Plan Approval. Ms. Coulter? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Worship. City Council is requested to consider an application for site plan approval for an automotive repair shop by GSS Engineering on behalf of Saji Velodi. The subject property is in our industrial park. It's on the south side of 23rd Street East with 55 meters of frontage. It does have access to full municipal services and is located on 23rd Street. The property is designated employment and zoned heavy industrial. So the proposal is thoughtful. It includes a phase 1 and a phase 2. So in phase 1, 271 square meters, a 4-bay shop, and a small chemical waste storage area, 3 shipping containers for additional storage on site, an outdoor garbage and recycling area, as well as on-site stormwater management. There's 25 parking spaces, including 2 barrier-free, and there's a pedestrian connection from the 23rd Street to the subject property, and a small apron in front of the property to provide for pedestrian access. A significant amount of supporting documentation was submitted with the application, including a site plan, grading and drainage plan, stormwater management plan. In terms of the provincial policy statement, this infill development on full services within the city's industrial park reflects the type of development that supports the long-term vitality of Ontario and Owen Sound. As I mentioned, the official plan designates the property employment, which permits a variety of land uses, including the automotive service shop. Subject to the conditions recommended, the project is consistent with the policies of the official plan. The site is zoned heavy industrial, or M2, and the proposal does achieve the required site and building requirements of that zone. The site is well laid out with appropriate parking and pedestrian connections, as well as landscaped areas. The site is fully serviced and manages stormwater on site. There is a requirement for a drainage ditch on the east side of the subject property, and there is a requirement to grant the city an easement over that stormwater area. So with that, Your Worship, the recommendation is that council would approve the site plan by GSS Engineering, subject to the 3 conditions outlined in Schedule D, and that you would authorize a bylaw or pass a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the site plan and servicing agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Hamley,
Happy to move the recommendation, Your Worship.
any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. You're probably up for the next one, maybe?
Thank you. Your Worship, this is a request from Sydenham Properties, Inc., requesting an extension for the time under their existing development charges extension agreement. The original agreement provided a deadline of March 1, 2019, and a subsequent approval of council was to June 30th of 2019. Based on the information in the attached letter, they have run into some issues relating to occupancy and programming of the elevator. This project is complex and has encountered some delays. Our chief building official reports that work is progressing well toward occupancy in the building, but they're just not there yet. I know no one wants to see the building finished more than Mr. Peary. So the recommendation, Your Worship, is that council would grant a request, and I'm recommending a slightly longer time frame to October 31 to make sure I'm not back to you with another report.
Thank you. Go ahead. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Worship. I think I moved this recommendation the last time and potentially maybe the first time. I will move this recommendation again, but I'm just really going to hope that we start stressing the importance that this building does get done. We have waived this development charge. This will be the 3rd time, I believe, to help the developer get there. And I just would strongly suggest that anything that can be done to ensure that developer meets that deadline, I think should definitely be done. But with that, Your Worship, I would move the recommendation.
Just a comment that perhaps 3rd time's a charm. I'm happy to see this going to October, but I'm certainly hoping that we don't see it again, because it gets to a point where enough is enough. And we need to start being concerned about that.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, Mayor Boddy. I have no problems with the motion as presented there. My question is, can we continue to work closely with the developer on this property here? There is some parking stalls which were made available out in front, and I know one particular business on 9th Street, the amount of construction and ongoing loss of parking is quite injurious to their business. I know people went through it on the Sunset Strip and through on 10th Street when that construction went on, and it cost those retailers millions of dollars. In this case, the coupling of the projects right now has led to a significant loss of accessibility. So I'm just hopeful that we can work closely with the developer there so he can keep that fencing back on the sidewalk and rest, the retail and the restaurants on 9th Street can benefit a little bit from that.
Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Just a little clarification. In the letter that's attached, he indicates that although they're still negotiating with the elevator company, they're also exploring other options. Was there any information exchanged about what those options might be? It's just in the letter.
Through Your Worship, I think we'll leave that to the developer and his contractors. He is exploring every option he can, we know that, to get that building occupied.
So that, including that, was for him, he was trying to demonstrate his intention to look at everything he possibly could to get this done.
Absolutely. I can guarantee you he is doing everything he can to get that building occupied.
Thank you.
And we are working with them. We will look at the parking as well, Councillor.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we had Councillor Dodd move that. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 12D, I believe, is from Mr. Kafalis with regard to Canadian Forces' use of the airport.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Your Worship, Department of National Defense has made an additional request to hold another exercise at Billy Bishop Regional Airport. They're seeking council's approval to conduct exercise Stalwart Guardian. It's not as extensive as the previous exercise that will be conducted this year. It's more of a land exercise from the Artillery Reserve Group, as well as some armored carriers. They'll be using, probably be done within a day. Essentially, it's pretty basic, very similar to before, and we're just seeking council's approval and to start negotiation of proper agreements and make sure to put in place for this event.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a quick question. When we pass a motion such as this, because it's at the airport, it's not in the municipality of Owen Sound, it's in our neighboring municipality, do we advise the Township of Meaford that those actions are going on?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not.
Okay. Could we make a suggestion that we advise the Township of Meaford? The only thing is, I know they're not our constituents, but I have heard from several neighboring residents in the municipality of Meaford who have politely asked if, when we do accept doing this, everyone knows it, can we just at least advise the Township of Meaford that this is going on so they can advise their own residents?
Absolutely, we can do that in the future, and including this event and any future events.
And I'd move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
I understand where Councillor Dodd is going with that, but I really don't see that it's our role to let the town of Meaford know what's going on with the Canadian Forces. I think we could possibly ask the Canadian Forces if they could be sure to let the town of Meaford know what's going on when they bring forward an application like this. But I really don't know that it's our role to let them know what the forces are up to. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Interesting. I am aware that there's a working relationship between the mayor and council, or the mayor and staff at Meaford with the training centers. So I'm surprised that they don't do it directly, but in any event. So motion made. Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 12E, Ms. Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendations in this report regarding the executive search firm for the city manager recruitment are that City Council provide direction on the deliverables to be included in the request for proposal. They approve the start date of the executive search firm contract as outlined in the report. They approve the proposed timeline of the recruitment as outlined in the report and provide direction on which 3 council members will evaluate the RFP, and approve the evaluation and selection criteria for the submissions that are outlined in the report. So council was asked to begin considering the recruitment for the city manager position on June 10th. And at that meeting, council did direct staff to bring forward a draft RFP for the procurement of the executive search firm. Enclosed is the draft RFP. So the 2 areas in the draft RFP that we're asking council to focus on are the deliverables that are outlined on page 15 and 16 and that I've included in the report, as well as the evaluation and selection criteria. I'm not going to go through each of the individual deliverables, but happy to answer any questions if there are any. And then you can see the proposed timeline in the report with the RFP award date or the contract start date in September, October of 2019, and then following a process there to have someone on board in April or May of 2020. The evaluation criteria, I've proposed a criteria here in a point system for the consideration of council. If they'd like something different there, I'm happy to hear any suggestions there. And then following the evaluation of the RFP, I would plan to bring forward a report recommending the award to the highest proponent. And based on some market research, that staff would expect this service to cost between $20,000 and $40,000, depending on what deliverables we end up with in the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we go too much further, Ms. Bloomfield has provided me with some suggestions on how to go through this strategically. Before we get into motions, are there any general questions for Ms. Reid right now? Okay, seeing none. So if we can go to the recommendation number 1, which is provide direction on the deliverables to be included in the RFP. We've got those in the report. Are there any deliverables that you think we don't need, or any that you think we should be adding, or do those look pretty good? What are your thoughts? Councillor Gregg?
Well, for me, every ask you make of a consultant is going to come back and cost you more money. I look at item B, the stakeholder meetings and needs analysis. As I read through a second time and a third time through other job comparables, there is so much commonality with the role, regardless of municipality. I question item B being there. I'd have to have somebody to explain and substantiate that to me to be part of it. I just think it's such an administrative role. We're not constructing a new business unit here and looking for that right person for that new direction of a company. It's largely administrative. I think it's been done in many other.
Good. So the question is to Ms. Reid, I guess, is that what does that entail? That be?
Through you, Your Worship, I think if council wanted to provide any specific information in the job description about planned projects that the city manager would have on their plate in the coming years, or if there's specific items in the strategic plan that they wanted to outline in the job description, I think those are things you could talk about with the consultant. But those are also discussions you could have with the city manager once they're on board and what their work plan looks like after the fact.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Just to Councillor Gregg's point, is that not what our 3 councillors are going to do in evaluating the RFP? Maybe that we can make that part of it, and if there's some of these deliverables that we want to eliminate because of costs, then maybe we can do that, or is that the idea?
I think I would have to check with the manager of purchasing on whether everything that we decide on today is included and we will be signing up for, versus after we get the RFP, we can decide which services we'd like to use.
So the evaluation will be after this decision is made? Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I just think that the intent of this was to allow council a chance to meet with the successful bidder on the RFP prior to the search for a new city manager beginning, so that we could at least sit around the same table and have a clear understanding of what council's looking for and what this is all about. So I'd like to see it stay in there, because I do want to have that input prior to the whole process beginning.
Councillor Hamley.
Yeah, Councillor Thomas took my words. So.
Good. Was there another hand up down there, John? Okay. So are we okay with those deliverables then? So if we go back, I'd look to somebody to move the recommendation number 1 to provide direction, I guess we just did, to adopt the deliverables as stated.
I will make that motion.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Number 2, approve the start date of the executive search firm contract as outlined in the report. I guess 2 and 3 really go together, which is approving the start date and the proposed timeline. Any thoughts on that? Councillor, Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
I'm okay with 2 and 3. Can I move both of those together?
Yep. So moved. Any other discussion, questions? Go ahead, Carol.
I just want to be clear, are we talking about the timeline, including the milestones? Is that what you're referencing at this point?
And he's indicating yes.
So I'm a little bit, it seems to me as if the job offer and the negotiation and the start date of the recruited manager, it appears to be quite tight to make for someone who has a certain notice period that they have to give in that type of a senior executive position. I mean, a minimum notice is 30 days, and in some, their contracts are longer. So I would encourage us to consider a buffer time, because if they also have to relocate, that makes a difference as well. So I'm just...
So you're thinking, just to draw it out, maybe you're thinking that a March job offer, contract negotiations, and then starting in April or May wouldn't be enough time?
If they were offered, through your worship, if
Go
they were
on,
offered
go ahead.
mid-March, and they had to relocate, and they have to have the orientation and training period, for them to give notice where they are, we're looking at a minimum of 30 days, minimum, and usually some are contracted for more. I just want us to be cognizant of the fact that we need to have and build in overlap, because they will certainly need that kind of linkage would be absolutely important. So, you know, if we even indicated beginning of March to mid-May, that would be a more achievable, but I'm just concerned that it needs to be at least a 60-day between the time that the contract has been awarded to the individual and the time they're actually physically present here with us. So certainly we need to build that in, because based on my experience with others who've had to go through this, there's certainly need. I mean, 30 days is a very, very minimum.
So, Ms. Reid, my reading of this is that there is a 2 months, 60 days kind of built into there. Is that something that the dates would be more specifically fleshed out with a company?
I think so, Your Worship. With the interviews happening in February as well, depending on when they happen, the job offer and contract negotiation may be able to start earlier in February as well. So we just kind of put the months in there so that we're not sticking to a hard date.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomas, you had your hand up. Anything further? No?
That was what I was going to reflect. I mean, we might still be looking in June. So I think there's going to be a certain amount of flexibility in here one way or the other.
So
I don't think we really will be. But.
Wayne, don't plan your golf trip just yet, I think is... Okay, so Deputy Mayor O'Leary has moved the start date and the timelines as listed there. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. So that covers 2 and 3. Number 4, provide direction on which 3 council members will evaluate the RFP. Ms. Reid, I think the idea is 3 councillors and 2 staff members. I'm assuming the staff members are probably you, being HR, and purchasing. Would that be?
Yes, Your Worship.
That knows this purchasing stuff, RFP stuff inside and out, yeah. Okay, so for the appointment of the 3 council members to evaluate the committee, I suspect there's going to be more than 3 councillors that are interested in being on that. And so I'm going to go through a process where I'll open the floor for nominations. A councillor will state who they wish to nominate. I'll ask if the councillor wishes to accept the nomination. When there are no further nominations, I will declare the nominations closed. If the election is required, each councillor has 3 votes. They can vote for themselves. I will ask for a show of hands on the first councillor who is nominated, and we'll track the number of votes in favor and continue this until all nominees have been voted on. And then, of course, the 3 council members with the highest number of votes will be declared on the committee. And Ms. Bloomfield has provided, if we get a tie, that we'll draw names from a hat. We get 2 people or 3 people tied for different positions until we get them. Or if we don't get enough nominations and nobody's really interested, we'll draw hats and force you into it. I think that covers it. So I'll go back up to the top. So I now open the floor for nominations. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Can I nominate all 3 or just one?
I prefer just one, and then we'll have a vote.
I'll nominate Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. Would you accept that, Councillor Thomas? He's indicating yes. Second nomination. Councillor Thomas?
I nominate Councillor Dodd.
Councillor Dodd, are you interested?
Sure.
Oh, that sounded enthusiastic. Okay, so that's two. Are there any others? Councillor Gregg?
I'll nominate Councillor Merton.
Okay, do you accept? Councillor Merton says yes. Is there anyone else, anyone wish to nominate anyone else?
I wish to nominate Councillor Hamley.
Okay. And any other nominations? There's only two of you left, I think, or three of you left. So we're at four. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
I'll nominate Councillor Tamming.
Councillor Tamming, you interested?
I'll decline. I think we have great nominees so far, and I thank Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further. No further, so we'll close the nominations. The first one was Councillor Thomas. Show of hands, all in favor. Yeah, keep your hands in the air. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do I get to vote? Oh, so 9. Okay. Who is the second one? Councillor Dodd. All in favor? Oh, nobody's putting their hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll put my hand up for 6. Councillor Merton. All in favor? 1, 2. I'll put my hand up for that, so that's 3. Okay. Oh, did you have your hand up? Wait a minute, we might be at 4. Did you get them all? Put your hand up again, Councillor Merton, just so we're clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Councillor Hamley is the last one. All in favor? I think I spent my 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, turn your microphone on and just...
So the members with the most votes are Councillor Thomas, Councillor Hamley, and Councillor Dodd.
Okay. So we would then need a motion to appoint those 3. It should be somebody that wasn't on that list. Councillor O'Leary, do you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? That confirms it unanimously. What's left? Number 5, approve the evaluation and selection criteria for submission as outlined in the report. Questions? For Ms. Reid, go ahead.
No questions, but I'd move that recommendation.
Okay. Others? Questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? That is carried. So I think that covers everything in the report. Thank you, Ms. Reid. Down to 12F. We don't need to adopt the report or anything like that on top of motion-wise. We've covered it all. 12F, oral report, verbal report from Deputy Mayor O'Leary on Grey County Council.
Thank you, Your Worship. In support of the Community Improvement Plan, County Council has asked staff to work with local municipalities to implement the Community Improvement Program template through the adoption of local community improvement plans that are designed to address the needs and incentives for each local municipality and address the 5 priorities identified in the CIP program. Those priorities are as follows: increase the supply of affordable and attainable housing, increase value-added agricultural use, promote the development and redevelopment of brownfield, vacant, and grayfield properties, support the downtown improvements, and support adaptive reuse of commercial, industrial, and institutional buildings. This plan includes financial support provided to local municipalities to assist with the various incentives that include financial support for grant programs up to $20,000 per year, subject to budget approval. as well as other incentives, including tax incentives, providing surplus land, reducing or waiving development charges, and application fees. And the only other item I had, Dr. Ara from Public Health did a presentation to council just to brief them on his upcoming meeting with Minister Bill Walker. And that meeting has taken place, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to give you some talking points so you have an idea of what he was talking to Minister Walker about. The purpose was the new regional public health entity is the next step for the Bruce Grey Health Unit to modernize and amalgamate as the Bruce Grey Huron-Perth Centre of Excellence in Rural Public Health. The purpose of this briefing is to inform the Minister of our key attributes, our comprehensive approach to transform public health in rural Ontario, and to seek his support to further the vision of a healthier future for all. Future discussions will focus on the process to integrate 3 distinct public health units, a consensus agreement by the public health units on the internal organizational design, human resources, technological infrastructure, and location to amalgamate offers to the most benefit for both the participants and the government. Next steps include, as a champion for rural public health, our organization has built the systems and processes necessary to successfully move forward with the next step in modernizing Ontario public health and more. We seek your support to advocate on our behalf with caucus, cabinet, and in the wider arena of public opinion as the Centre of Excellence in Rural Public Health for Ontario. So with this amalgamation, I think Dr. Ara is, and I commend him for this, he's taken this positively, the cuts that are coming in 2020, and he's acting on it by trying to show the government we have the state-of-the-art building right here in Owen Sound and try and expand on that and bring jobs to Owen Sound. And unlike the city of Toronto, who chose to go to war with the provincial government, he's taken the positive approach, and I commend him for that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions for Deputy Mayor O'Leary? Seeing none. Down to number 13, which is our consent agenda. Ms. Bloomfield.
Through you, Your Worship, on the consent agenda this evening is a report respecting the Owen Sound Men's Slow Pitch League Annual Playoff Tournament at Duncan McClellan and Tom Williams Park, and a report respecting the first annual Crime Stopper Slow Pitch Tournament at Duncan McClellan Park. There are comments from staff on planning notices from Georgian Bluffs and Meaford, and several businesses were issued final approval, including Primetime Property Pros at 2336 4th Ave West, Kokoro at 950 2nd Avenue East, Misfit Studio at 60 10th Street West, Georgian Shores Adventure at 1386 8th Ave West, Mastermind Toys at 1969 16th Street East, Crown for Crown at 783 to 787 2nd Avenue East, Made in Paradise at 622 4th Avenue East, Paint and Wood Care Company at 845 10th Street West, and the Emancipation Festival Hawker and Peddler license. Lastly, there's correspondence presented for the information of council. A full listing is available at 13F.
Thank you. Councillor Hamley, first, go ahead.
Just a question on Mastermind Toys. Why is it taking so long to get to council? Because they were open before Christmas last year.
I'm not sure offhand. I would have to double check, but there are various situations that can arise. They may not have gotten their application in right away, or we might have been waiting for comments from various departments.
Okay, Councillor Hamley. Oh, is that a hand? No. Okay, Councillor Hamley.
Moved by myself that City Council receives item 13A to 13F on the consent agenda dated June 24th, 2019, and further that the recommendations contained in reports 13A to 13D be approved.
All in favor? That is carried. Committee minutes with recommendations for approval, starting off with the Community Services Committee. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. City staff have drafted an asset management plan policy. In January 2018, the Ontario government released an asset management planning for municipal infrastructure. The regulation has 12 guiding principles that must be incorporated into all asset management policies. The objectives of the asset management policy are to provide a framework for implementing asset management to enable a strategic approach at all levels of the organization, provide guidance to staff responsible for asset management, communicate to stakeholders the management principles endorsed by the city, provide transparency and demonstrate to stakeholders the legitimacy of decision-making processes, and commit the city to support the implementation of asset management methods that are consistent with the organization and meet the council's priority objectives. The city's draft asset management policy meets the 12 guiding principles mandated by the Ontario government. The Director of Community Services presented a public art project. The report outlined the request she received from Jennifer Hicks to place the multilingual community mural on display under the city's public art policy. For this art project, individuals were invited to write their name, birthplace, or a message in their native language on a tiny paper fish and affix it to a mural. The artwork depicts fish swimming towards each other over a painting of the Owen Sound Bay, symbolizing many cultures coming together in this community. The mural will be placed at City Hall for a 3-month term, then moved to the Bayshore Community Centre on the blue wall in the main corridor for another 3-month term. We had a facade and structural improvement program application for property at 748 2nd Avenue East. The proposal on the south side facade is to replace 4 second-story windows with new French-style windows. The proposal on the west facade is to install two new double patio doors to access the terrace area and to install 3 new French-style windows. Staff presented the new county official plan titled Recolor Gray that was approved by the province. The official plan sets the county's goals and provides direction for growth and development for the next 20 years. It divides the county into different land use designations and sets policies for each designation. The city's official plan must comply with the county's official plan as well as the provincial policy statement. And with that, I would move approval of those minutes.
I just want to take a moment. I know late last year I was quite adamant or looking for a better means of showing the building stats. And I'd be remiss to say I think this new presentation is much better. And I think it's quite worth mentioning that we've got on 2019 so far we've got 53 units over 37 units approved in 2018 by the end of May, and our construction value is at 15 million over 9.6 million a year ago. So I think those are some pretty positive numbers on a night where we opened up with a big development project in front of us. It takes a while to see these come to fruition, but hopefully 2019 is a year now that's going to be very robust in terms of delivering on what we thought a couple years ago.
Thank you. So we call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we have minutes of Operations Committee from June 11th. Councillor Gregg.
Which was a very light agenda, the June meeting. Not a lot of discussion. We just had our monthly airport report and, of course, the asset management for review. I will just mention we had a report from the Manager of Public Works on water conservation standard operating procedure, and it just responds to a concern of any unplanned or extended downtime that may occur of capital work at the water treatment plant. Standard operating procedure is a formalized way of working with the public to conserve water if the need arose, and is a document which does not precipitate changing or adding any new bylaws. So that might just be, we've already got bylaws pertaining to lawn watering restrictions. The second tier would be car washing, pools, and third tier would be non-drinkable water or for cleaning only. But not a lot of discussion on any of those reports, so those were all just received for information. I would just note that the minutes show myself moving last month's receipt, and that's not correct. It's Member Foster is the correct individual on that. So with that, I ask for approval.
So with that amendment, the 4A, perfect. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Discussion of additional business. Ms. Bloomfield, you're up first.
Thank you, Worship. Staff have yet to hear from Council on any delegation requests for AMO, and the deadline for submissions is this Friday. Since this item was not listed on the agenda and it is time sensitive, should council wish to have an AMO delegation, I'd recommend that council first pass a motion to waive the notice provision in the procedural bylaw with a further motion outlining the delegation request.
Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Hamley.
I will move the motion to waive.
Did you have none?
Right.
I'm going to get you to hold that till we have a little further discussion, maybe just for a second, to see if there's anyone else that's got some ideas. Councillor Thomas.
I think that if we have until Friday, I have certainly been in touch with Georgian College, and they had an interest in us having a delegation with the Minister of Colleges, Training and Universities to speak up on behalf of funding at the local campus and the extension of a degree nursing program here in Owen Sound, rather than our nurse trainees having to go to York University to complete their training. So if we can hang on to that, and I certainly I need to speak to my friends at the library, but I think a meeting with the Minister of Culture might be in order as well to talk about the interlibrary loan service.
Others? Councillor Thomas, Councillor Tamming. Funding through the art gallery, there's seems to be a push to be incorporated and not municipally run, which is ridiculous after a gallery is 50 years old, and I think we are the 5th oldest municipally run art gallery in the country. I wonder if that's something that we should be knocking on the door of the culture minister to point out that we shouldn't be losing funding from having a gallery that has been well run basically for 50 or 60 years or whatever it is. Any thoughts on that?
Are you referring to the Ontario Arts Council funding?
It would be, yeah.
I'm not sure that I'd really want to upset that apple cart. I think that's a fairly clear set of rules that they have for galleries that go through a financial disruption, and I think those rules are in place for specific reasons. And I think that, you know, we're in our second year now, we're moving forward, and I'm hopeful that those restrictions will be lifted shortly in any case.
So not now. Councillor Tamming, any thoughts?
I concur with Councillor Thomas on that. Have you heard something fresh, Your Worship?
No, it's just it just seems to be sort of long-term rules that push us in a direction that maybe isn't fair. But it maybe isn't, now isn't the time. Go ahead.
I wonder, Your Worship, if it wouldn't be worth having another little chat about interest arbitration as well. We seem to hit that one every time we go to AMO, and it is a new government now, and you know, we had a good response last year, and I wonder if we should just be following up. And again, I'll take guidance from anyone, but that is one that we typically do have a discussion about.
We have seen some changes in the arbitration rules that haven't kicked in because we haven't started the next arbitration. So I don't know if this time's right for that or whether we wait and see. Go ahead, Councillor Kepke.
Just to mention, there's a possibility that through Conservation Ontario, that the Grace Alba Conservation may be requesting a meeting with the Ministry of Environment respecting the funding cuts to conservation authorities in Ontario.
They would do that directly?
Yes, they're going to do that directly.
Mr. Ritchie, your thoughts on going back in interest arbitration and banging the bell again?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would agree probably with your assessment that the interest arbitration rules have changed. Once we get through this, our latest arbitration, which are under the old rules, I think the new rules will be more to the advantage of the ratepayers. It might be a year that quite frankly, if you've got other delegations, and we're always busy at AMO, that I might pass that up for a year, see how we do in our next arbitration round. And I think we can certainly speak with our local MPP, the minister, and let him know how concerned we are that the new rules do continue to apply when we get there. So if you want my advice, I might take a one-year pass on meeting with the Minister of Labour.
Nobody wants to discuss municipal reorganization? Go ahead. I'm just throwing that out as an idea.
So that'd be with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and, or, is that who you're speaking with? You're talking about, from Brockton? Former Mayor of Brockton, I guess. I'd be more interested to hear maybe from how we can do shared services. Now, I'm not sure who we'd speak with about that. Maybe not so forced into the amalgamation aspect, but maybe more on how we can start working on joint services. But I don't know who you'd speak to about that, or if that's something we should do here at local level.
I thought we're doing really well making inroads with the Minister of Government and Consumer Affairs, but he changed. So there was only really, I think when we come back, the one on library, is that?
And the colleges, trainings, and
Georgian
universities, but I wonder if I could let the clerk's office know before Friday about that, because I have been in contact with Grey County, and they may want to do a joint presentation on behalf of Georgian College.
So is everybody okay at that? Go ahead.
Can I just request that it maybe be Wednesday or Thursday, just so that we have some time to put it together?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
They don't want to work all night putting together the report. Okay. That's good. Councillor Thomas, you've got 2 items. You're okay for now? Yeah.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a quick mention that on the 15th, I had the occasion to attend the Army Cadets Annual Review at the Armory. I've heard you wax poetic about it, but have never attended myself, and it was quite a day. I was really impressed. You know, as a parent, it's nice to see young people with some focus in life, and these were certainly some highly focused young people. With the precision with which they marched and did their drills was really quite impressive. The other thing that I attended, and I've got to put my glasses on here, is I was at the grand opening of Kokoro on Friday afternoon, cutting the ribbon and bringing greetings on behalf of council. And I knew it had a salt cave, but it has so much more. I was very surprised, and so I just wanted to fill council in on a couple of the things that they offer. Halotherapy, of course, in the salt cave is good for asthma or any kind of breathing ailment, and they run kids' hours in the salt cave where the kids can play with tractors and diggers and toys in the salt that's all over the floor. They have 2 flotation therapy tanks, known to some of us who are a little older as sensory deprivation tanks. And you can go in and use a tank for an hour and just, you know, see what comes to you. They have an infrared sauna therapy, and they offer all sorts of healing sessions there. And so I just wanted to wish them the best, and I did on behalf of council, because it's great to see new business come into the downtown, and seeing a business like this really does bear out what we determined in our downtown revitalization study, that niche businesses are going to be the future of our downtown. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to let everyone know, or remind them if they got the newspaper on Saturday, that here's our beautiful Canadian flag, about the insert of regarding the Canada Day festivities that are happening, obviously, on Canada Day, July 1st. This outlines exactly what's going on at Kelso Beach, both out on the grounds and on the amphitheater stage. That begins at 4 o'clock, and some of those things include, there's a Scouts Canada race car track. Obviously, there's the splash pad and playground. There's also a 4-paws flying entertainment, live-action dog shows. I don't know about you, but I'm a dog fan, so that's where I'm going to be going. And it's greets with the pups, so you get to take your picture with them too, I think. So bring your cameras, because that sounds like a lot of fun. And on the amphitheater stage, we've got the Dickie Bird Band starting at 4 o'clock, and this is ongoing until 10 o'clock when we've got the fireworks. And if we have some inclement weather, don't fret. We've got the fireworks will go in on July 2nd. So when you get there, you can also get one of these bad boys. Beautiful flyer that was put together by the Economic Development and Marketing. So this will be handed out at the event, or you can go to tourism, I believe as well, correct? And pick this thing up, and this has got all kinds of goodies in here. It tells you what the food and drink vendors are, and it also reminds us of some of the other events that are going on this summer. Not forgetting Harborfest, July 13th, big night. Or the movie nights. We've got some good Sandlot at the Duncan McClellan Baseball Park. That's going to be a fun one. And then obviously Harbor Nights, that's going to be there every Sunday. So once again, insert in the newspaper from Saturday has all of our events. Coming up, July 1st, Canada Day, 4 o'clock.
Good, thank you. Is there a Sunday night concert between now and... So there'll be one this Sunday at the Marine Rail Museum or, what's it called? Community Waterfront Heritage Center. Good. Before we get to Canada Day. Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Kepke.
Speaking of Harbour Nights, I was there last night and it was wonderful entertainment, and it looks like the lineup this year is really going to be spicy. Looking forward to the variety there is. There's a lot of bluegrass and country and folk and rock and a whole new flavor. So I think it's going to be really great. There was a great crowd last night, and as well, the Big Bay ice cream truck was there, so it was getting lots of people purchasing ice cream cones. My other item is, I just wanted to thank the staff as well, whoever screened the talent that's coming. It looks like a great lineup. So if you can pass that along to staff and thank them for that. Also wanted to mention 10th anniversary for the Active Lifestyle Center is happening on Thursday, and encourage any members of council to attend that ceremony. Minister Cho is coming to speak and bring greetings, and they'd certainly like a good attendance. So it's on Thursday, the 27th from 10:30, and if you wish to stay for lunch, you're certainly welcome to do that. And it's going to be at the Bayshore Community Center. So anyone listening is able to attend as well, but 10 years at the Lifestyle Center. So that's a good milestone for them.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the calendar. We're not back until the 15th of July, and I believe Harborfest is the 13th, with an AC/DC band and activities all day long around the harbor. I know the police are doing their tug of war, I think, again, so lots of things. So Harborfest is July 13th. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Maybe
Sorry
it was
about that, but also reminding people of the Hottest Street Sale taking place on July the 6th downtown, with all kinds of vendors there, and it's going to be from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m., I believe it is. So we usually have a huge attendance, and we're just hoping for great weather for that, and lots of bands playing and lots of activities going there. So just tons of things happening before we even meet again, like you say.
Nothing ever goes on in Owen Sound. That's quite a list. Thank you. Just before I start, I've forgotten the name already, the person that came in and asked about climate change, and I wonder if we can get a report back. We've done a whole bunch of things that we don't give ourselves credit for. We've changed all the street lights to LED to cut down on power. The ice-making equipment up at the rec center was designed to capture heat out of the system that was to be more efficient, that you could use to heat pools, as I recall. Certainly this building was rebuilt to be a lot more efficient and cut down on energy use. I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface of some of the things we're doing, all about lights in the arena, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of things that have gone.
Light refurb, LED refurb.
Yeah, ballpark, yeah, we looked at that the other day. I wonder if maybe we could get a list for the next meeting. It can be kind of casual, just to remind us of what all we've done already, and then we don't get kind of caught with our mouths open trying to figure out what we've done. I've done a couple of different interesting things in the last week. Certainly as a council, we went out on that special council meeting tour last week by bus, went through all the parks, looked at the work in the bathrooms and the accessibility and the upgrades that we've done over the last number of years. And we've done a lot over the last couple of years, so it's nice. Some of the things we had to do after really neglecting parks for a number of years. So it was a good tour. Last week I attended the Level 1 Cook Apprentice Year 1 grad from Georgian College. So OYAP, Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, 20 students that are in their last term at high school can start the last term Georgian College taking the Cook Apprenticeship, and they've already got their Level 1 certificates by the time they graduate. A number of them will stay in that program. A number of them wanted to be in the cooking program before they started. Some took it unknowing and will stay after being in there and really enjoying it. Others will head for other apprenticeships, other training programs at Georgian College. So it's a really good program. We know that there is such a shortage of different types of labor in our region, and it will continue to grow as 50-year-olds and the kind of that post-war baby boom moves through and starts to retire in the next couple of years in apprenticeship programs. So it's skill training, et cetera. It's pretty important, and that cook apprenticeship really showed. They serve food, so how can you go wrong? They're really good at what they do, and they've learned so much from Chef Tony, so it was a good program. Friday, Mr. Kafalis and I joined Georgian Bluffs, Meaford, and Chatsworth and attended and toured what's SSO?
Source Separated Organics.
Source Separated Organics, there we go. Plant in Toronto. Right now they have 2 of them. They're building a 3rd one. This one is still really being finished, but it's been built over the last 2 or 3 years. It is eye-opening what can be done. Upper tiers will be pushing us to get as much organic, or what they actually called was human food waste, out of the system, and they've got quite a system there that hopefully can be implemented with the biodigester that needs some work but is close, has a license, etc., that Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth share. Moving forward, we have Listex down in Southgate, and this one up here in Nunn and Bruce County. We're going to need to work together with our neighbors across Grey and Bruce to make these 2 units work, to provide enough feed to them to make sense. This system in Toronto is generating enough gas to power 2/3 of the garbage pickup trucks in Toronto. So it's quite an impressive system. Not a big building. About 1/3 of the waste was the bags and stuff that they can't do anything with that come out one end. At the other end, the quality of fertilizer that's coming out at the end of end product is pretty rich and really good for farmers to take and put in their fields. So it was a very educational day, and it was good to be hanging around with our neighbors and chatting about those types of things. Yesterday, I did participate.
Your Worship, if I could just while you're dealing with it, has there been this issue came up during the election. I remember we were asked that at the all candidates, and frankly, I haven't given it a lot of thought. Has there been a staff report done on this organic separation issue and so forth? I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but I was just curious.
I'd say not at this point. But you'll remember that we also moved that we would start to have discussions with Georgian Bluffs, and this is sort of where we've started with it.
I'm just curious, what do you anticipate?
Twice in the past, Council has looked at source-separated organics. The first time it was going to be more than $1 million, as I recall, to set it up. The second time was
I could, Your Worship. It certainly has been looked at twice, I agree, in our time here. The time may be to look at it again. It has been financial, it has been the holdback, but times are changing. We are trying to work closer with our partners, but source-separated organics in Grey County alone, and Dennis would be more of an expert than I am, will take a collaborative effort of certainly, I would say, most, if not all, of the lower tiers to produce enough product. But we have been in consultation with our neighbors to see if we can even start the process. I don't think we're at a point where we could be a good investment to take a full report to our council, but when we get there, certainly that report will be coming, and I have no doubt it will be within the next 12 months. I'm not saying we're at a lead.
our pickup contract ends in 21 or 23.
To the best of my recollection, Your Worship, 2023.
So that's sort of one of the next times. But if we can be set up and progress before we get to that date, it would be perfect.
It is something I hear from ratepayers more and more, especially people who move to this area. I don't know if we're behind the curve or just sort of riding the curve, but thank you for that. Very helpful.
Guelph is a way ahead of us. Even Meaford's ahead of us. London is in the same position as a big city, so And again, so Toronto is taking just garbage bags, regular garbage. They're not separating before they get there. And once it's in that machine, that's how they're separating it. I could go through the whole process, but it'll take me another hour. Thanks. Yesterday I attended Ride Don't Hide, which raises fund for CMHA on Grey Bruce. They've recently amalgamated with Hope Grey Bruce. So mental health and addictions and things will be administered together. This ride provides funding for programs that they don't get government funding for that are so important for our community, and we've got one of the best CMHAs here as far as staff goes and programs, and it was great to be able to participate. There's 300 plus riders. It was a perfect day. There was a goal of raising $65,000. Yesterday they announced there was something like $73,400, and little birdie told me today that it is quite a bit more than that, but we'll wait for them to give their final announcement. People can still go into ridedon'thide.com, look for the Grey Bruce ride, and continue to donate, I think right up to June 30th. All of us have been somewhere or know someone who has been there that suffered with mental health challenges, and it's such an important partner in our community to be able to have services and help people recognize when they're having issues, and so it's an important thing. Looking at this, there was a team that did a lot of fundraising that came in from Toronto. When we look at events like this, a beautiful ride along the shores of out into Georgian Bluffs, county roads and township roads that were in great shape, great views. It's one of the nicest rides probably going for a lot of riders, and you hear those comments and they do come in for it. You look at that, you look at the Bayshore race that pulls in runners from all over the place that come up from Toronto, etc. These are becoming really big tourism attractions that help our tourism economy, but also help our local charities put money into the coffers to be able to run programs. So I really enjoyed being part of it yesterday, and can hardly wait till next year when I look forward to all the other councillors getting onto a bike. You don't have to do 80. You can. Scott did 80, right? You did 80 kilometers as well. But you can do 12, you can do 25, you can do 50. Anybody can be involved. So it was a great day and a great way to raise money. So I think that gets us through all of our other business, or additional business. So we're down to motion that the committee rise, number 18.
Moved by myself that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. Number 19, motion to adopt.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gregg, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? That is carried. Notices of motion, seeing none. Bylaws.
Through your worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to establish fees and charges, a bylaw to execute a second amending site plan agreement for the French Catholic School at 800 23rd Street East. There are several facility use agreements for various events throughout the city, including the Emancipation Festival, Dog Show, Summerfolk, and the Salmon Spectacular. A bylaw to execute an amending lease agreement with Rogers respecting the storage control room at the Bayshore. And lastly, a bylaw to execute a street vendor agreement for Sugar and Ice, a mobile food business.
Thank you. Councillor Hamley.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gregg, that bylaw numbers 2019-105, 2019-106, 2019-107, 2019-108, 2019-109, 2019-110, 2019-111, 2019-112, and 2019-113 be passed and enacted.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. So that completes our business for tonight. It is 8:41. Wishing everyone in Owen Sound and across Grey Bruce a happy Canada Day. Come and join us. We do it good. We do good Canada Day at Kelso Beach. Thanks, everybody.